March at 12 UT and Saturday the 22nd at 10 UT. As mentioned last week, as I was recording the day before, we were all hoping to hear another yearly broadcast of Radio Imran from Germany via France on 15215, February 21st at 16 UT, but it was a no-show. Someone suggested it might air instead, UT February 22nd at 01 on 15125, but nothing from it then either. Here's the March scheduling of Uncle Bill Telford's programs on Channel 292 Germany. From the Isle of Music, a Cuban dance party with favorite charanga orchestras. Friday, March 7th at 22 UT on 3955. Repeated Saturday the 8th on 3955 and 9670 at 18 UT. And exactly 1 week later on the same times and frequencies, Uncle Bill's Melting Pot. March 14th and 15th. Mainly music from Corsica. Israel Gomez Ahumada in Yucatan notified me that one of the Merida, Mexico stations on AM is off the air. It had been 650 XEVG. It's still on FM, however, 94.5. It says the only AM station there still on the air is Radio Universidad. That's 1120 with 1 kilowatt day, 250 watts night. XERUY. Late at night, I've been hearing a heterodyne against 1550 medium wave stations on 1549.82 kilohertz. February 25th, around 0630, checking several remotes. It seemed to be coming from Mexico rather than the U.S. And there's only one possible station there, XEREL, in Morelia, Michoacan, but we're not yet sure. David Potter in Florida reports on 7405, one of those low-power private stations in the Netherlands, Radio Piepzender in Zwolle. It was very weak, too weak, with fades, some quite deep, between 2320 and midnight 20 UT on 22 February. ID at 2326 and 2338. Then he checked it via the remote in Holland at 2345. It improved after midnight UT with an ID at midnight 25. As Radio Piepzender from the Netherlands with music for everyone. Via Mike Barraclough, a story from the Voice of Nigeria website, February 22nd. We are working to return our shortwave transmitter that will enable Voice of Nigeria to speak to over 10 mega people, Africans and people around the world. We create and push content in 8 languages. Nothing more specific about resuming shortwave, but of course, their last frequency was 7255. I have not heard the Enid CB Pirate lately relaying a local religious translator, but here's another one from Rick Barton in Arizona on 27205 at 1850 UT, February 21st. To talk about current events fading in and out, right in against Musk, and on Melania Trump. Tune in at 2018. There are some local issues that we want to discuss, so possibly that's where it was coming from. Rick Barton was also hearing the North American pirate, non-Christian, YHWH around 7475 at 0330 UT, February 21st. It went off during a fade down at 0645. February 25th at 1958, past 2004 UT. On 15190, I was hearing Tagalog. Yes, that's Radio Pilipinas on the air later than previously scheduled, 1730 to 1930. I was listening to the remote in Brazil where it was making a huge heterodyne against Radio Inconfidencia, which is off frequency minus from 15190. And we see a report from Alan Pennington in the British Desk Club about Radio Pilipinas World Service extended hours. Ruben Punkoff reported on 16 February he was hearing it at 1730 to 2030 on 9925, 12120, and 15190 in Tagalog and English, an extra hour after 1930. One was also hearing it until 2030 on 26 February, wondering if the other transmission at 02 to 0330 has also been lengthened. Filed under Russia Anon, Mike Cooper forwards a story from the Ethiopian news agency ENA.ET, February 22nd. Russia's news agency Sputnik, most an African media hub in Addis Ababa, has reaffirmed its commitment to play a pivotal role in efforts to resonate the voice of Africa and Ethiopia internationally. It's launched its first large-scale multifunctional editorial hub in Addis Ababa. It says Sputnik is anticipated to launch a 24-hour radio transmission in Amharic and English, collaborating with local mainstream media in the near future. Bill Tilford replies, whether the actual number of languages proves to be 8, 16, or 32 is less relevant than the intention to expand coverage. Russia and China are both betting on the proposition that people will listen to stuff in Africa, something that Western countries would do well to consider while wrestling with their own cognitive issues on the subject. Via international vacuum, Internet, AM, FM, and shortwave. World of Radio 2284. A non-commercial service, as is our website, worldofradio.com. Our thanks this week for financial support from Terry L. Kruger in Niceville, Florida. Send a contribution for all your years of dedication to accuracy. To Glenn Hauser, P.O. Box 1684, ENID OK 73702. One may also contribute via PayPal, not necessarily in U.S. funds, to WORADIO@yahoo.com. About Somalia from Vladimir in Rybinsk, Yaroslavskaya Oblast, Russia, in Rusty X. The only station still operating in Somalia on shortwave has appeared again, possibly since January. Heard via remote in Ethiopia, Warsan Radio, 88.2 FM in the city of Baidoa, 7750. It responds to e-reports, power 100 watts, scheduled in Somali and Arabic at 03 to 06 and 09 to 1945 UT, but it's sometimes inactive. The website, warsanradio.com, has a player, but there is no streaming. And in fact, Warsan Radio was soon heard by our monitors on 7750 USB, February 24th at 03:15. Ron Howard in California was hearing it by that same remote in Addis Ababa, past 03:30. And Arthur Posner in New York was hearing it at 05:10 with a pretty good signal into Ethiopia. Also, Zaharis Yangas at 06:24, the carrier on 7749.94. And also in the evening at 1703 with 2 IDs. One of the frequencies, and thus one of the transmitters of Radio Exterior de España, continues to be absent over the past week, 1203 for the Middle East. But they're not giving up on shortwave, unlike so many other countries. There's a report in Rusty X via Igor Kolche about an interview with the Russian section of REE by Luis Manuel Fernandez Iglesias, the director of REE. A goal we have is the renewal of radio transmitters. Too early to talk about a complete victory, but we have already taken a number of steps in that direction. A couple of months ago, the board of directors of the Spanish Broadcasting Corporation unanimously voted to renew all 5 radio transmitters at Novlejas. The revived Voice of Turkey continues to be unreliable as it was before. The 23 UT broadcast on 5960 was missing at least on February 22nd and 26th. However, they have revived their letterbox program on Sunday, heard February 23rd. And they said they might be doing some other letterbox segments during the week. On the other hand, Mike Cooper forwards a report from MediaNews.net, February 22nd. A court blocks VOA and Mesopotamia News Agency amid growing censorship in Turkey. As part of the ongoing crackdown on freedom of expression and the free flow of information, the second branch of the Adıyaman Court has ordered blocking of VOA Kurdish online broadcast service under the pretext of protecting national security public order. The decision follows a similar move by the same court to restrict access to the Mesopotamia News Agency. In 2024, Turkey recorded the 3rd highest number of press freedom violations among European Union candidate countries, with journalists enduring widespread arrests, censorship, and intimidation, according to a report by Media Freedom Rapid Response. Mike Cooper forwards an article from The Spectator, 15 February, titled Bring Back Shortwave. It's by Clifford Beale, an honorary senior research fellow at Exeter University and former editor-in-chief of Jane's Defense Weekly. Might it be time to bring shortwave out of retirement? The BBC continues to broadcast on shortwave to Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. but budgets and audiences have declined markedly over the years. There is just one UK-based shortwave transmitter remaining in operation at Wolverton, Shropshire, built during the Second World War. But China has invested heavily in shortwave broadcasting for domestic and international reach. Many transmitters spread across the country. Even tiny Vanuatu in the Pacific has decided to use shortwave as basis of its emergency response network in times of natural disaster. True, it's retro analog, but shortwave gets through to people where more sophisticated digital communications fail. Yet another story via Mike Cooper, this from Telegraph, UK, February 22nd, headlined, BBC Arabic fails to challenge half of hateful statements by pro-Palestine guests. Media observers claim presenters are far more likely to interrupt and challenge contributors who support Israel than those who criticize it. The following has caused a great deal of concern and discussion on both sides of the Atlantic. BBC.co.uk has an article about BBC studios making podcasts available to international audiences via BBC.com and the BBC app. However, as Mike Cooper points out in this report, the BBC will also be making BBC Sounds available exclusively to UK audiences and ending access to the service for international users beginning spring 2025. Why is this? Due to rights limitations. Not all BBC content can be made available to international users. Mike Bearclough quotes somebody named James. As soon as BBC earns money from international streams of Radio 1, 2, 6 Music, etc., then they need to pay full music rights for them, which isn't an option. They only have music rights for the UK. The loophole is that as long as they don't market the streams abroad, and as long as they don't earn money from them, the music companies turn a blind eye. A story in Radio Today clarifies, only BBC World Service and BBC Radio 4 will be available to users abroad. I say, so apparently we can say goodbye to classical BBC Radio 3 and Proms concerts getting into the US. However, there could be other options, but Joe Hammond says, in March of last year, in light of latest cuts to BBC World Service shortwave coverage, I pointed out you can dial a phone number in the U.S. to hear their programming any time of day. But now he tries it and it is not completed as dialed. No longer available, we have thus lost another option to hear the BBC. About World of Radio scheduling, last Friday, February 21st at 21:30, I was surprised to hear me on WRMI 9955. It's supposedly not coming on shortwave until 2200. Just at web streaming. We'll see if that continues. However, the broadcast UT Sunday at 01 is still missing from 9955. And as you may have noticed, WTWW was unable to be on the air last UT Saturday at 0400 on 5085, but I'm sure they'll keep trying. However, shortwave radio in Germany has added one more time and frequency for World of Radio. Thursdays at 1730 UT, the final repeat of the previous week's program, on both 3975 and 6160. It seems it's possible to hear something besides religion on WRNO. Ken Zicki in Michigan reports 7505, February 26th at 0605 to 645 UT, still on the air with a very good signal. Ragtime and Dixieland jazz, Zydeco and other New Orleans-style music with a DJ called Kenneth, or was it Kevin? Workable IDs and contact info. A refreshing change from their usual brokered Bible bumping. Apparently it is on regularly. Well, I am not counting on that. It may be just because of the Mardi Gras season, which is officially March 4th. Via Mike Cooper, a Los Angeles Times story of February 21st. PBS and NPR on edge over FCC letter and Trump budget scrutiny. Carr's January 30th letter raised no specific examples that showed PBS or NPR violating the rules for public broadcasters. PBS Southern California and others are promoting Protect My Public Media Day on March 6th to rally support. The far-right Washington Examiner has another story, February 25th, headlined Campaign to Defund PBS and NPR Heats Up. Let Soros fund them. The Media Research Center, a conservative watchdog effort, could get a boost now that its founder, L. Brent Bozell III, has been nominated to head the U.S. Agency for Global Media, the parent agency of VOA and other federally owned international broadcasters. Following up our report last week about KAPK, the new FM station in Wyoming, where Tom Roberts has a show, it seems this was just in time, because as of February 24th, he tells me I've been let go from KAPK for reading Newswire, which was critical of the current federal administration. My popularity for the afternoon show was quite high. Listeners loved the mix of music sprinkled with old-fashioned radio humor. The owner claims potential major advertisers were angry about my comments and threatened to withhold advertising if I was allowed to continue my presence on the station. Even my commercials that were so well received by the general public were removed. The only vestige of my presence that is left is my Sunday religious program, Biblical Perspectives, an academic view of biblical scholarship. And Tom Roberts says, it is hard to believe that America has sunk to these fascist tactics. I've seen it coming for decades. It makes me very sad and unhappy to report that big money and corruption has found its way to Pinedale, Wyoming. Via the WTFDA group, this by Matthew Keys at the desk. The National Association of Broadcasters has petitioned the FCC for a new rule that would require all television broadcasters to fully shut off their current ATSC 1.0 broadcast signals in favor of a full transition to ATSC 3.0 within the next few years. The proposal would require broadcasters in the top markets to wind down 1.0 by 2028, and the remaining stations forced to transition to ATS 3.0, also known as Next Gen TV, on a full-time basis 2 years later. This, of course, will require lots of people to buy a new TV set capable of pulling in version 3. James Thomas comments, ATSC 3.0 as a general rule is failing. It seems like a lost cause, as stations that have switched over are struggling to gain any attention from the public. Most people still don't know about Next Gen TV, and the ones that do, the majority of those can't see a reason to adopt it. On-the-air TV is shrinking in popularity with the younger generations. I'm not sure why certain broadcasters think that a different format of digital television is going to rescue it. There are so many things working against its success. Nick Hallpatch has a very interesting article called Beyond DXing, Analyzing Medium Wave Propagation During the 2023 Annular Eclipse. It can be read at the blog of swelling.com. The Propagation Outlook from SWPC, issued February 24th. Isolated G1 minor storming conditions are likely from March 7th to 18th, with A and K indices of at least 10 and 3, peaking to 30 and 5 on March 13th and 14th. Quietest dates of only 5 and 2, March 3rd to 6th, and 20th to 22nd. Solar flux descending from 195 February 28th to 155 March 10th, and back up to 200 by March 22nd. Remember to check our website for much more info, worldofradio.com, including links to the current shortwave schedules, as well as my complete and uncut log reports. With many thanks to all our stations and contributors. Hoping you'll hear me again next week. Glenn Hauser here, concluding World of Radio 2284 with a standard disclaimer.
With transmitters located in Germany, this is Shortwave Radio.